So think back to those risk factors and try to explain what happened with girls. Well, poverty won't explain it because girls and boys are in the same homes. So it wouldn't explain why rates went up for girls and down for boys. Access to guns, most kids get guns from their homes or the homes of people in their community. Alcohol and other drug use, good survey data that show boys and girls pretty much go up and down together. Boys with higher rates, but still the curves go up and down pretty much together. Witnessing and victimization, very interesting one here because girls and boys are victimized differently. But most of that is in the context of homes and of people known to the family. So it's hard to imagine that there's a reason why those numbers would change for girls and not for boys. And then biology, well, there's no reason to think that's changed. So we get back to this culture of violence and the socially toxic environment. We call it the feminization of the superhero. What I really say is this. We are now marketing and selling and advertising violence to girls and have been for about 20 years the way we've been marketing it and advertising it to boys for centuries. And I think we are learning it. The other thing that's happening, and I think this is a really important point, it is hurt children who hurt themselves or other children. And traditionally, girls who were hurt, who were traumatized, hurt themselves. They ran away, they made suicide attempts, they became prostitutes, they started using drugs. An internalization of that hurt and trauma. I think in advertising violence to girls, we're now beginning to see some of the externalization of that trauma that we see with boys more traditionally. Now, you can get into a discussion or argument about whether internalization is better than externalization, but what we really have to talk about is how to help those children in the thick heal, how to help them handle that junk that is happening to them. We need to try to make the junk go away, but they also need help, strategies for handling the junk without the violence. Survivors of violence have a lesson to share. And in Boston, some families helped us write the Peace Zone curriculum, which really has to do with elementary school children and helping them with what's called emotional intelligence. We do conflict resolution, but we also do this, how to handle those emotions that are difficult. And I want to share with you my aha moment around this. It happened after September 11th, and it was 2 weeks later that I was scheduled actually to come to Ohio. I was going to Columbus. I was going to give a speech. And I convinced myself intellectually to get on the plane. I said, it just happened, it's not gonna happen again, everybody's paying attention to security, and look, you know what, if you're ever gonna fly again, you might as well fly now. You know, what's going to be different a month from now, a year from now? So intellectually, I convinced myself to get on the plane. So I'm sitting on the plane. There are maybe 2 other people on this plane. I mean, you know, it's right after September 11th. Planes have just been flying for a week. And interestingly, I'm sitting on the plane, and all of a sudden, I just start shaking. I'm crying. I'm overcome with fear. And then a thought comes to my mind. It was this. Okay, President Bush, you're supposed to be the hawk. It's been 2 weeks. You haven't bombed anybody. I want these people dead. I want to be safe. I want to sit on this plane without crying. And then right after that was another thought. It was like, oh my God, who is this? I mean, Miss Violence Prevention, you know, Miss Walk the Walk, Talk the Talk. What the heck is going on? And that triggered a 6-month head-gut debate. I got back to Major Jones' liberation theology. I restudied the ethics of distress. I got myself back. And I understand that violence is rarely, if ever, going to solve a problem, that it almost always creates more problems. And you know, we won the Iraq War once, so it's clear if winning it would solve the problem, we would have solved that problem. It is almost certain that Martin Luther King and Gandhi and all those in history who said to us that an eye for an eye leaves us all blind really were telling us the truth. But you know what's interesting? What's interesting about this is my aha moment. Because what I appreciated in that moment was that I had totally underestimated the fear of the children I'd been serving. Teaching conflict resolution in the classroom is a great thing. It works, but it's not enough. Because some kids are in the thick and they need help handling that bad stuff that is happening to them. And we have to provide much more to those children, and we have to provide it early. Lastly, on this list of why violence is preventable, or how does Deborah Prothrow-Stith know that violence is preventable, is a recent learning of mine. Had I been more of a historian when I was in school, had I paid a little bit more of attention to history, I would have appreciated this earlier. But there was a period of about 100 years in the United States where dueling was the order of the day. And dueling occurred among elite white gentlemen, many Southern. It peaked around the 1850s. Harriet Martineau, a journalist out of New Orleans, wrote, and this was about 1850 or so, that there were 2 or 3 duels every day in New Orleans and at least 15 on the weekends. It was a common practice. It was culturally expected, and women were told, don't marry a man unless he had proven himself with the blade. Special twin pistols were created for the duel to make sure that people used the same weapon. And these were orchestrated events, often crowds dressed in their finery gathered to see the duels. There were places that were known for duels because they were illegal. Nevertheless, the lawmakers were the ones dueling. Quite an irony, but a lesson. Cultural expectations trump laws. We're not going to make violence illegal and make it go away unless we deal with the cultural expectations that go along with it. It's illegal, but our children are taught by us to fight. And that was what happened in this period.